So, if please, let's start our session. First of all, I would like to apologize for this slight delay. We had to wait for our keynote speaker, so we couldn't start without him. I'm sure that you came to see Paul in the first turn, and you know that we're all smiling and we love him because he's our guru. So, our session is about brand reputation. What we have been talking about today since morning is that we know that the world is changing dramatically. We are already living in, so to say, tomorrow, because our fantasy writers, sci-fi writers, Mr. Asimov, Sorokin, and many others writers already described the future, and we know that it became reality. That's why we speak about the communications of the future that has already arrived. So that's why we have these natural questions arising. How should we build up our communication? What kind of tools should we use, especially that about 60% of all the universal population is always online. They are trying to extract the truth in the time of post-truth. They are trying to elicit some emotions that have been sublimated. So we heard different stories in the last year and a half that those stories were the quintessence of communication, but they do not work anymore because we are surrounded with excesses of information. We are also using the internet. We are actually trendsetters to a certain degree at least, but we are also consumers. We use this information. We consume 5 times more of information as compared to 5 years ago. We can hardly digest that scope of information. The rate of changes is so high, so we cannot digest this information, especially if we take both professional information and some personal interests that's outside of our profession and work. And apart from this load of information, the fast changes. There is the book about the economy of impressions. It was written yesterday, whereas now we're living in tomorrow, as I said. But anyway, emotions is something we use whenever we work with our consumers, with our users, and it's all related to the content, because this is what is important. Sometimes it generates a lot of aggression via social media and other resources. So how do we create content in our sectors, in our industries, in our companies? How do we develop it? How do we develop our reputation and how it can be maintained? Because now I'm going beyond the scope of our profession, because we speak about business. Even though we are going to speak about society later on, we are going to have representatives of education, and they will tell us about the work and how it can be appraised and evaluated. So how do we create the content that would be addressed to our target audience? So it can be B2C or B2B. It's all about products and services, target audience that includes not only end users, depending on whether we speak about B2B or B2C, but it also includes stakeholders. And the most favorite subject is society, with all its problems that there are. So this is what we're going to talk about: how content can be created, how we can work with our target audiences, whether it's B2B or B2C, and how can we shape the reputation and maintain the reputation on the market. So I suggest that Olga Barskaya is going to be first. She will start with the problem of generation. Thank you. Thank you for introduction. I represent the media industry. It's true that we promote different products. We stimulate our audience so that they took interest in our products or the products of our customers. So I would like to ask you to raise your hand if you are over 36. We're actually quite young if we speak about modern technologies. Excellent. I'm in a great company, and it means that you represent Generation X, because we experienced a lot of changes in our lifetime. Then the next generation is Generation Y, that are between 21 to 35. Who are these people? Raise your hands. And if you are younger than 21, please raise your hand. Oh, I can see one hand at least. That's great. So this is the Generation Z. It means that they are learning a lot, but very soon they will go shopping and will try to buy different things. And of course, they are interesting for all our customers. So Olga mentioned what happened 100 years ago, but I would like to focus on the recent period of 2025. Actually, I was talking about today, but you mentioned lots of sci-fi writers, you mentioned science fiction novelists, but still. Okay, anyway, I would like to focus on the recent 20-25 years, because if we speak about Generation X, the people of my generation, you all remember about these cards of the buyers or shoppers, because we had some coupons to buy sugar or to buy bread. My mother made a dress for me using some pieces of clothes. There was no problem related to the choice, because we couldn't find any clothes at all. It was a very tough time. So you had to wear whatever you had, because there was no choice whatsoever there. You couldn't find anything in the shops. And so it was easy. But later on, you probably remember that we got the first markets, these local markets. People brought American jeans, candies, and Coca-Cola. You remember those kind of jeans? And we started trying to make that kind of jeans ourselves. We heard the song about Mentos, the guy from Aria band. It was the golden time of TV advertising, because there was a dictatorship of brands. Brands prescribed what to wear, what to do, how to behave. As far as I remember, there was this TV program, Jungle's Calling. It was an advertising program that advertised different food products so that children could consume it. We were maybe 15 or 17, teenagers. Anyway.
Your past sounds a lot like the future that Britain is going to have after Brexit. No choice about food, taking coupons down to find a pair of jeans. I'm going to have to come to Russia.
We will see.
Paul, you are completely right. We are ahead of the planet. We did it already, yes. And now you can use our experience.
Well, технологии. Давайте.
Anyway, technologies. Now let's move on from TV and markets. We had just one antenna for broadcasting, so the coolest people had pagers, and the first oligarchs began to use the first suitcases with mobile phones. Okay, we were very unsophisticated people. We consumed everything, and we were happy about it, very excited about this. What happened next in terms of marketing? The marketing was very simple. So you can show something on TV, the same advertising message, and the person will go and buy it. You didn't have to chase the consumers. It was very easy to deal with. But with time, the next generation, Generation Y, began to grow up. They didn't see empty shelves. They knew only the time of exuberance. It was the time when Minaev's book, Dukhless, Spiritless, appeared. You know, the first Reputation stories appeared. There was this company, Craft Toys, that mentioned business reputation in for the first time, because, you know, some people came from abroad and started telling Russian people about reputation, and everybody was very sarcastic about it.
So abroad it was working, but in Russia, with our size and habits of consumption, it seemed very senseless. We had the Nokia phones, we sent SMS messages, MMS. So, and we knew some brands. They were not popular more as the golden warrant brand names on the T-shirts, and my friends wanted to buy, let's say, golden bags in this kind of color. It was very important already for us, and we consumed information in a very, very new way. When there were a lot of changes before the time when Steve Jobs came on the stage with the new iPhone. We don't know his brands. I mean, the sweater and the jeans. And Y generation, let's say, identified the border before and after. Since the new iPhone appeared, it was very simple to communicate, starting to send messages, SMS, phone calls, and then companies, communication companies, let's say, appeared with new services, and people start to be in the streets with their phones. I was really shocked by the American agency who made the statistics that 30% of people looked at their phones once watching TV. It was very interesting. And the dictatorship of brand, you know, started to be has not very stable position. TV was not the only channel, and there are a lot of influencers appeared, and they started to tell us what is more fashionable. And Z generation, let's say, appeared conscious. You know, I have one at home, and it's really nice to observe them. These, let's say, people appeared and were born with the phones. All their life they have in the phones. What is TV for them? This is just the screen. This is YouTube, you know, screen for them. They just see the content they want. What's happening in the United States? Brand.com is getting a new popularity right now. There is no any kind of difference, let's say. Very simple model of consumption. One toothpaste, one toothbrush. People don't want to think twice about the brand. What my friends buy things, and how they do this. They buy from AliExpress. I get a lot of receipts from my post box and go to the post office, let's say, to get the stuff. So we have a lot of models of consumption we've never had. We've been to Ashan every weekend getting, cars of different kind of products, goods. And I saw the report for the last half of the year, and they have lost 1.5 billion rubles. People started to buy near house. In many shops, let's say. There are new models appearing on the market, different unique, for example, case that happened. What is Vkutsville? How the story appeared about these shops, let's say. The founders of the company started to tell us that they support Russian farmers, and many, let's say, people from marketing, let's say, vote with their rubles to support these farmers. It became very important. If the company is connected with ecology, doing some activities in this field or some nice social events, people started to vote with the money for this company and support them. Let's say another companies. Another company is interested with the games, let's say. S7 got a new event, the new case started, let's say Siberia is fighting with the fires, and they are gathering, let's say, money for growing new trees. 65% of people in the new statistics that buy products from the companies that is socially responsible. I think future is will be very good. We become a very conscious and young people supporting this kind of trends. I think that it will be interesting to listen to our colleagues who will speak about their cases from the big companies. Thank you very much. That was a very nice cover of what has happened in our society for the last decades. Part of our society has been changing, has changed. We've spoken about the targeted audience. Thank you very much for this optimism that we really lack sometime. Right now, Anastasia Makarpina from Total Company, which is probably the greatest business, the coolest one. This is oil without gas. Will tell us about brand safety. I could not, let's say, translate it and left it like it is, and will tell us about the corporate values and reputation of the brand. Thank you very much. Olga had very nice story, and it was connected with the daily consumption of the products and goods of the first need, let's say, for our daily life, for our young generation, some current consumers. If we speak about our department and oil and gas business and oil products that we produce and offer, for us, brand reputation and communication of this dimension is in the dimension of our bigger partners, let's say, where the brand till today has, let's say, colossal meaning, and the level of perception is not on the daily basis but the global basis. We represent French company. This is global brand, and the reputation has great importance to the B2B segment, which is our biggest customer. Probably not all of us, especially women, have changed the oil in our car, but in this or that way, we all have heard or had the let's say, experience with this kind of business. Being the total company, we do refinery, we do the production of oil and gas. We have some logistics system. Here in Russia, if we speak about the reputation segment and B2C, first of all, we speak about the oil and engine oils, liquids, and the other products that you can buy in the gas stations. That these products are connected with some chemical substances. If we do not go deeper into some complicated terms and terminology, these are, and speaking about daily life, we speak about the products that has packages, lacquers, colors, different polymeric products. This is a very wide range of products that belong to this industry. We have a very big brand, let's say, and we should keep our brand safe, and our reputation should be important, even for those people who face up with the issues of buying some retail products like motor oils or something like this. Being the international company, our reputation and brand safety is the key one for any kind of affiliate company or representation office which is in the any other territory in Russia. Of course, we are have high digitalization, we are very active. That made big brands that work with the B2B segment became, nevertheless, of the activity B2C. Once selling our products, so we communicated with our distributors. Right now, we have hotlines, emails, and any person here can, let's say, work with a brand, do hashtag, or do some kind of science. The company that brings and carries values, some particular values, they should be formed inside the company in Russia, inside the clients, and among our partners. There are some classic stuff. Despite of the change of the generations, we should stick to it. The reputation of the international brand. This is visualization. This is identification. This is the united policy that is stands beyond and behind all the materials, information that we distribute among our partners, our customers. We have big trade marketing politics in the regions, in countries of the CIS countries as well. We need to let's say, transfer information in Belarus, in the Far East and other regions. Our symbols, our signs, logos are the, let's say, basics for the identification of our brand in the market as the international brand, and the right visualization and standards. Speak about strategic trends of the company. They speak about the innovative changes that company bring to the market, and the communication message that visually or mentally, let's say, can and want to reach our customer. Standards of the European brand. This is some particular level and quality that we show and offer our clients in all the levels, in the regions and in the final points, let's say, and with our final customer, in the communication as well. This is our highest level of value, and this is probably the most interesting and more formal part of my presentation that I will speak about, that allows us to defend ourselves from the reputable risks that can appear in a big oil and gas company. Big scandals, let's say. and big attractiveness from the point of view of the information about spills or burning of some liquids that are connected with the refinery production and transportation of these products. All these cases are on the highest level of attention and discussed vividly on the level of our company. The main value, 1 of 5, key. This is connected with the safety, value connected with the safety. For us, safety as a key value is expressed in our communicative strategy and policy. We are friends and support projects connected with the road, a movement. This is auto industry. This is transportation. It's important not to speak about this, just to speak, but to speak in the right way. There are different cases and collaborations that made by international brands that lead a lot of consequences and carry some reputable risks. And in the framework of this, I'd like to devote to let's say, finish my speech and my presentation with a video of our competitor, just to be closer to B2C market. They made a collaboration together with one of the kids brands, and they haven't thought twice about the reputable risks and the company Greenpeace. This is not our video, but someone else. Let's say we vote for being politically correct. Maybe we will not look at it. Let's say we'll not watch it. But we've heard about this. About this maybe when the company was found in the market. I mean the market one. The Russian branch was found in 1992. Which communicative project or tool was successful and could be the nice case for all of us to be highly competitive on the market? I know that there is a special segment on the market right now. These are corporate wars for the market share that happen right now. Which of the communicative tools or the projects you consider the most successful for the company that helps to develop the brand, the reputation and competitiveness of the market, on the market? We have some specific, let's say, some peculiarity of the final product and communication. Now this is, let's say, engine or motor oils. This is a special segment of the market which is very specific on the market. And looking over the experience working in the automobile company for the Russian customer, the European brand and its international value and high standards of the quality are the key communicative model for communication. And for the local representative, it's important. Brand reputation and value in this matter is the key for us. In your portfolio, do you have any kind of portfolio? I don't want to make you tell something. Just maybe you have some idea in your mind. I've worked in a very global company, and we had, let's say, a different diversity. I was trusted to do some project, but I used to work in Deutsche Bank. I adapted very nice project here. I just want to lose time from the Russian communication, let's say, experience. What you can tell us? What kind of example you can give us? So we adapt practically all the European advertisement and standards that exist as the value of safety that I mentioned. We do adapt to the Russian market. We have one cool project It's called Total Exam, let's say. It sounds really cool. You know, you played in a very nice way with the name. This project is connected with the all-Russian exam of the rules on the roads. So this project has expanded. Last year it was only digital platform. This year this project would be in Russian schools, internet platforms, and in the road police stations. Thank you very much. This is a very nice example. Well, Ekaterina Koleda is a little bit, let's say, late. Who knows? She's from AKMR. Do you know about it? You probably know it because you've got the bronze bird from the hands of Ekaterina one day, or maybe you participated in some contest. Well, Ekaterina has been working for 15 years in this company, and she will tell us more how it works and what she does.
Hello, I'd love to explain what it means. AKMR. This is Association of Directors in Communications and Corporate Media of Russia. It's true, we hold this competition, and those people that get the awards are very proud of getting the prize, so we don't really promote any events, since it's all about the development of communication industry overall in Russia. We actually run several professional competitions. At first, we tried to focus on those segments that include digital communications, corporate video, and corporate media that were good niches to occupy. But anyway, if you started working with our association, know our title very well, even though our association name changed. But anyway, in the first 4 years, we developed those tools related to the communication channels. Everybody knows how important it is to use right communication channels, and at that point the media were most advanced, so it was good for us to use those platforms, and the industry of corporate communications was launched quite fast. It was great that we had already some basis, some foundations, and we published the magazine about mass media news, so most of journals and publications worked with us, even including Yellow Press. Yeah, all sorts of publications. But anyway, I realized that I'm talking to a business audience, and we work both with B2B and B2C, and you know, sometimes people from corporations came to media and vice versa. People from media went to work in corporations. Anyway, the market was developing very fast together with our association. So the corporate media has become very popular, so we had a competition for the best PR agency, and we have more and more events like that. Anyway, it no longer looks like a big celebration of feast that it used to look like in the past. We more focused on strategic events, more content-rich events, because our work is different now, and we are trying to develop in line with new trends. So we try to work with those that work with different communication, and we also like working with the students. Over 10 years, we run a competition for students, which is about corporate communication. So we try to bring together both business communities and universities and other higher education institutions. I can say that brands depend on people, directors of communication that manage the brand. And that's why the companies can be very different from each other. There is this term, manage your boss. That's an American phrase. In our case, we sometimes speak about the enlightenment of the boss or boss education, because it all depends on the boss skills and whether they know how the brand is developing. So it's not always that you can affect the leaders. But we can get some insiders information, and you can always share this information on a very top level in corporation. So what we were doing as an association, first we maintained the status of corporate media publications. They looked like leaflets, usually portraying a general director who was shaking hands to some important person. But at the moment, the system has become much broader. It's a multimedia process, and actually corporate media is much more than traditional media, and there are a lot more consumers that consume corporate media. And that's why big companies are attracted and involved into this process. Many things have already been said about ethics and social responsibility, as well as sustainable development, but not all companies understand what it means. The person that manages communications in the company is doing a special work, and it's because it's related to development, not just communications. We understand that we have to work with different stakeholders that involve different target audiences. So what do communication people do? They bring feedback from different groups. So it means that we have to work and focus on the brand in order to address different target audiences. So that's why the role of the person that develops a brand has to do very important work, because if you understand that the product which is being developed is harmful, then you should think about it. Let's say some people became rich due to some illegal means, and when you come to a company, you can always explain to the person that you can make the same margin using different means. Olga mentioned the prize, the award, which is a golden bird. Yeah, I have a bronze bird. Yeah, but I couldn't get the golden one. We have a nomination, social responsibility of media, and different people from non-profitable organizations, corporations, foundations, and media themselves represent projects that have been monetized. You know how difficult it is to introduce social responsibility aspects. One thing is that it's difficult to check whether it's true or not, so they can publish some information by paying money, and of course they're responsible for this. Then on the other hand, many companies are still using their own promotion. And there are so many different projects that are just being replicated for different target audience, and they do it again and again. And this it's all about PR, you know. They make a lot of noise, but in reality they do very little. That's why it's very difficult to conduct media research and to explore it and study in detail. That's why I mentioned the term sustainable development, because this is related to target audiences and to transparency, to see whether the brand is really working with this concept with sustainable development. Also, if you are going to manage the brand or to work with our association, I would like to say that we have a top pro rating that shows the specialists that work in communications. Sometimes ignore this. Sometimes people ignore this because, you know, I'm working, I have some community that are interested in this work. But for us, it's very important to make it transparent so that the person could really prove that he or she is worthy of having this position of directing communications. Many communications directors get training in order to be proficient in digital technologies. And there are some young specialists that work with phones very well, but they cannot do monitoring based on keywords. So I can see this generation gap. Like my daughter can't really learn from older teachers. You know, she likes younger teachers, and she is motivated whenever she sees a young teacher. If she sees an older teacher, she loses all the interest. Also, I have to say that young people can be very lazy, and maybe we have to do something about it. We are, being a soft power, can change the situation because we have great resources since we deal with communication. So the professional community can be divided into two parts. One part is using it for manipulations. You know, there are many narcissistic people, so they try to promote themselves and they're using it as an instrument of influence. And there are people that are very responsible. They understand this responsibility, so they are very careful. And they're trying to be as professional as possible. It's just my opinion. But if you understand your personal responsibility, then this makes a good effect on the company. Thank you. I can see that I have to stop, even though I'd love to add a couple of more words, just not to be confused. You know, there are serious brands like Total and many other companies. I'd love to ask some questions to those people. Sometimes it's very difficult to make a shift. If we speak about these huge brands. And for example, you are highly digitized, but still I have this question. How well are you using this capacity? Because for new brands, you know, it seems like they live in a different reality. And they know that they have to use Facebook and other media to win the audience. But as to traditional brands, what can you say? Sorry, we can't start the discussion right now because we have to follow the rules. I might be an old school moderator, but we have to stick to the regulations. But anyway, I'd love to thank Ekaterina because she said very important things, that it's not that we only work with stakeholders, products and services. We shape the opinion. We affect the opinion and the relations to different issues. And I'm afraid of saying the word reputation, because we also affect the reputation of the company and shareholders whenever we work with business. And even if we take just one business or one company, there'll be very different stakeholders, many stakeholders that have their own goals and its own reputation. So it's part of the business matrix, and it's part of our communications work. You know, I was trying to count how many areas of work I had, like 25 to 26, and each business had its own product or services, its own target audiences, and different requirements with regard to reputation issues and shareholders' interests. So it's true that communicators affect reputation and brand development. And now I would like to give the floor to Ekaterina Son, and she will tell us about the cases that are presented by the company as super things, because they go with these achievements to the international competition. So how do they see this? And I would like to say that Ekaterina has enormous experience in the publishing industry. So it's not only about creating an international award, AFI, and select the right jury members that give awards for good communications, but also for the business knowledge. I mean, knowing the business from inside. So there are certain fundamental things that we can see here. And again, content and the technical aspects are all interrelated. So the floor is yours, Katya. Thank you, Olga. I would like to thank all the organizers and all the participants. My name is Ekaterina Son, and I'm the head of AFI Awards competition. Who knows what AFI is? You know, this award came from the word effectiveness. So it's an international project. It is in 52, it's held in 52 countries, with their headquarters being in New York. So it was founded in 1961. It was, you know, a competitor of Cannes Lions. But Cannes Lions as an award was about, you know, creative things, about wow. You know, usually this award means that you were impressive, whereas AFI was more about money, because money is important for companies, brands, and society. So AFI said that we are going to evaluate the projects from the benefits point of view. The profit point of view could be marketing or other things that could be measured, but it's also not only about business benefits, but also the society and how these great things could benefit society. So my talk is has a title, The Trends of Local Marketing Communications, by the example of AFI award projects. So what has been determining for success recently? It's not just about the prize, but it has to be founded. It has to be justified, you know, some figures, some perception. The facts should be measurable. And what effect this I guess all marketing people and PR people understand it and have it in mind. You know, you have to understand you have to explain why you spent $1 million on some marketing company. What is it going to bring to the company? So I'll try to be brief, because if we go deeper into each point, then it would take a long time, especially that I could illustrate it with different cases. But anyway, it's great that there are hundreds of projects submitted for this competition. That's why we are working with a very good database. So when we look at this database, when we try to analyze the factors that affect effectiveness, we realize that, first of all, what's important is something simple. It won't be an insight, it won't be a revelation. But anyway, you have to understand that it's just a fact. So first of all is knowing your target audiences, getting and having this insight about your consumer experience. But the devil is in detail. So when we know this insight, we know about the concerns that our consumers have, then the communication companies that want to maximize the profit, they have not only to use those insights in their messages, they have to make the consumer become part of the communication campaign, be proactive in it, change it, and make some adjustments. And so you have to understand that this insight that you had, it might have a different look in reality. So you have to be ready to change your company endlessly.
So this is the first point. Second point, we speak about our time, digital era, the understanding how to work with the data and having competences to use them in the communications. This is kind of very obvious stuff, but there are a lot of technical issues that all the communicators can do. How to customize, for example, for some targeted audience, some particular event. How to, for the best money, get the right channel of communication. Another remark that I want to add: we are all in the digital era. It's all understandable. Looking at not on the Russian awards winners, let's look at the United States market. All the effective brands, of course, use digital and social mass media. The main channel of communication is TV, even before now. This is the main touch point. This is television. This is first one. Second thing, with all this digitalization, all the coolest brand, iPhone advertisement. What is it recorded with the iPhone? What's the main communication message? This is the billboards, old-fashioned billboards. And the conclusion is, we cannot deal without digitalization, but in order to be effective, think how and what channels to use. And personally for you, maybe some kind of print can work out. But the campaign, for example, that Apple use these billboards, of course, it is noticeable, not a lot in Moscow, but in the United States it is very vivid. For example, if the billboard is in the Manhattan Fifth Square, it would be the scene, let's say the picture would be made by the camera of this iPhone in this area. So that is all, let's say, localized, I mean, these billboards. This is wonderful. I mean, this is this old-fashioned, let's say, ancient channel that has been used in a very creative way, and it really involves the users. These users send this kind of photos. What I like as well and will not be able to speak about from these old trends, I like the topic that now communication really work out. Let's say I'm speaking very fast, I don't have enough breath even. Well, there are a lot of brands that come with brands that have a lot of trends, let's say, a lot of ideas. And Anastasia mentioned it with the Total company. Really, if there are so many brands that move some categories or big messages, they, let's say, move the market and change the market. This is very effective campaigns that they do. And my favorite point that I want to touch upon, and later on I'll show you some video. Let's move forward. Not now, please. So this is understanding of big targets, sustainable aims. This terminology is very complicated, of course. There is the trend that people really react to the market and vote with the rubble, let's say, with the right logos. So Z generation is not about rocks, sex and drugs, but is about openness, about ecology. It is said that they are not interesting people, they are a little bit boring, not interesting, I think we should think it over twice. But the good news is McCann and Nielsen studies tell us that people around the world tend to trust brands, not the governments. Brands can use their power, their communicative power, to change the world. Not only earning money, but to change the world as well. But the devil goes in detail as well. Is in detail. So once again, people vote for responsibility of the brands all around the world. But people here do not trust business, do not trust local business. I think maybe a margin here can be, and money can be from the different source even. Let's say in this market in Russia, this is kind of a particular thing about Russian market. Russians do not try brands, do not try businesses. There is some special statistics how many people prefer and do and are ready to buy some products or not. Let's say this is a very arguable stuff, but these two really influence the effectiveness, the companies that catch this insight that is connected with big messages, with the values, with the right targets, in the right way. They do include them into their campaigns with in the collaborations. They really achieve more than the others. Intermarché company, the French retailer, you probably heard about it. The company that Ekaterina, sorry, we do not have more time. Please, let's finish. This is about the corporate reputation. If you have any questions, please prepare your questions. What Intermarché, please. I was not warned with the videos. I'm very sorry. I've heard and I knew about these presentations and slides only right now. Sorry.
100 million tons of it away each year.
Tout ce qui rentre pas dans la norme, c'est poubelle.
As the European Union made 2014 the European Year Against Food Waste, Intermarché, the third largest supermarket chain in France, decided to rehabilitate the non-calibrated and unperfect fruits and vegetables. So we launched Les Fruits et Légumes Moches, the inglorious fruits and vegetables. As good, but 30% cheaper. How did we do it? We bought from our growers the products they usually throw away and sold them in stores. They got their own aisle, their own labelings, their own spot on the sales receipt, and their own glorifying 360-degree campaign. With print,
Этот ролик выиграл?
outdoor,
Да, то есть мы смотрим победителей. Да. А есть какие-то...
So this is the winner, right, of Effie Award, right? This is true. What were the measurements?
Okay, you have them all. You have everything that other fruits and vegetables have. You can be whatever you want to be. Juice, soup, stew, you name it. Who says you're not eligible for supermarkets? Who? You gotta start believing in yourself, otherwise nobody else will. When you'll be lined up in boxes at supermarkets, I want you to stand upright and feel proud of what you are, because there's nothing wrong in being ugly.
Let's make a stop here, pause. How did you measure? It was the winner, right? There were KPI in sales, and the sales really increased. A very wonderful company. We changed the sphere, let's say, of the retail after Intermarché, and some others joined this initiative. Can we know the figures? This is plus 24% of sales. Then we measured the social impact. The quantity of food products that were not going to the dumps. There were a lot of brand metrics, responsible brand, the brand that that I trust. We measured these stories, let's say, and each indices increased by some points. Of course, I don't remember. How many seconds do we have this video, let's say? What's that? How is it long? How is it long? 30 seconds, maybe more. I would not be probably. I'm the old generation. I wouldn't have finished this video. This is 6 seconds that our consumer, doesn't matter B2B or B2C, has in mind. This is 6 seconds. This information of the last year, 1 year and a half, 0.4 seconds. It already decreased last year. Please don't remember what do you think about your targeted audience? And how much attention you can get from them. Ekaterina, thank you very much. One day we would discuss the topic of sustainability, but not today. Your question, please. Very fast question, very fast answer. I have 2 questions, very short questions. I would be very grateful for shorter answers first. So, Anastasia Makarkina, do you understand correctly? Depending on your presentation. So brand activism, let's say this is the work on their reputation, this is a part of, and brand activism, let's say. Paul Holmes, I'm very interested in your opinion as well, how this story is perceived in Europe. Second question is about Ekaterina Som, big data. Issue big data is a very popular topic right now. Which big data do you use, dear colleagues? In which form do you get? This is it. Thank you. Anastasia, please start. Please in a couple of words only. Yes, speaking about me, yes. Yes, the company Total has the policy. This is international one. This is called the document, which covers brand communication, brand content. There is positive and negative stuff when you measure brand tracking and when you need to compete with the world of 200 and more names of other brands and sub-brands. With this big, cool international reputation that you have, you, let's say, become very neutral. And in the moment when corporations understand that neutrality and being neutral doesn't lead to good, better sales. There is a question to think over the brand activity, as you've mentioned, brand activism that you mentioned. In order to add this emotional insight that Ekaterina mentioned, and to be the part of the targeted audience in order to increase this emotional involvement and loyalty to the product. Thank you. I want to answer about the data. We use practically all the data from telecom, from the banks, the operators of the fiscal data. From the operators, we all follow the norms and the laws. But we need to understand how and when, what our buyers buy. The special department works with the data. We have more IT people in the company, in this sphere. I can give you examples with the receipts. For example, the advertisement campaign on the sale on advertisement of the motor oil. It offers, for example, in the advertisement to make a photo of the receipt and send it to us. So in which way do you get the data? I mean, what is the format? Once you send the receipt to the system, I get this information, let's say. How do you get this data? The company with a big brand are needed for the further communications. The data is being cached or transferred of the, let's say, divided into different segments. We have this data confidential. We do not have any personal data, but only the analytics. We get this, let's say, in the refined way already, this content. If we need to transfer this data to the headquarters, let's say, as we understand, it's quite complicated due to the regulated legislation in this way. This is also the allowed regulated data transfer that is legal and affordable, let's say, allowed. Paul, can I ask you, please, to be...
Огромное спасибо спикерам. Простите, что мы не успели, вам все сказать, что хотели, ответить на все вопросы, но у нас вторая часть, она не менее интригующая и еще более в чем-то напряжена и насыщена, потому что сейчас будут перед вами выступать компании B2B, притом, я бы сказала, upper level. Это не просто B2B аудитория, это те компании, которые работают в очень специальных секторах экономики, требуют специального регулирования и специальных отношений с целевой аудиторией и промоушен. А можно девушке молча это делать? Я очень люблю... Значит, ивент-менеджмент – это не самое, в моем портфеле приоритетный, несмотря на громкие названия проектов, вид деятельности коммуникатора. Но я потрясающе люблю, когда не видно и не слышно организаторов на площадке. Я понимаю, что при таком мероприятии это очень сложно, гораздо проще делать, если у тебя там Путин, министры сидят, самые главные иностранные инвесторы, там можно все делать незаметно, здесь сложнее. Так вот, прошу на сцену, пожалуйста, за стол, у нас не сцена, за стол спикеров нашей второй части. Итак, еще раз, мы сейчас говорим, на мой взгляд, о самом интересном и самом важном. У нас в компании B2B. Давайте мы подвинемся чуть-чуть. Да, а то как-то... Paul, nothing personal. Could we move a bit left?
Yep.
Yes. Sorry for that. Так удобно?
Да, спасибо.
Ну, он просто молчит. And we start this part of the session from Paul Holmes. Please, Paul.
Okay. I was intrigued by the topic of this panel, and I should say before I get started, I was very flattered that Olga, not this Olga, other Olga, included me in Generation X, because the reality is that I'm probably closer to the baby boomer generation than I am to the X generation. And one of the things I should say about that is when I was starting out in this business, we didn't talk about brand reputation. Brand was one thing and reputation was another. And so when I was starting out, the very simple way of saying this was that your brand was all the things that you said about yourself. Your brand was all of the messaging that you sent out. And your reputation was what you earned through your behavior. And we drew a very big distinction between those two things. I think the fact that we are now having a conversation about brand reputation is actually indicative of the convergence that we've seen over the last sort of 5 years between the world of public relations, which is about earning, not necessarily earned media, but about earning a reputation and earning a relationship, and the world of brand, which has become more and more about that. And one of the things that I think has changed in the last few years is that it has become increasingly difficult to think of your brand as something that you control. So the idea that the brand is all the things that you tell people about yourself has, I think, become outdated. And today your brand isn't all the things you say, it's all the things other people say about you. And that's true whether you're in the consumer space or in the business-to-business space. But your brand is not your advertising and your website and your sales promotions and your sponsorships and your speeches. Your brand today is all of the conversations that are taking place in the real world and in the digital world. And if people have a choice between believing all the things that you say about yourself and all the things that other people are saying about you, they are going to believe what other people are saying. And so if the messaging that you try to control is out of sync with what people are hearing from their friends, their families, their colleagues, the people that they mix with in the digital realm, then you have a very serious problem. And for marketers, I think this has changed almost everything. For marketers, I think suddenly their concept of brand has to change by 180 degrees from what it was a few years ago. Now, I would also suggest that this has created some challenges for marketers that, from the perspective of public relations people in this room, are, let us say, interesting. Because I would suggest that in order to deal with this world where you can't control, you can only influence, marketers have to start to think like public relations people. Marketers have to learn things that public relations people have known all along. So suddenly, if you're a marketing person, you have to learn corporate social responsibility, which has always been a PR function or a corporate communications function. If you're a marketer today, you have to understand how purpose and values and cause-related marketing and CSR all contribute to the success of your product in the marketplace. I would say that if you are a marketer today, you also need to understand employee communications much more than you did 5 years ago. Because, again, this world in which we're living, where your brand is determined by conversations, is suddenly determined to a great extent by how your employees behave and what your employees say about you. If the brand is a promise, your employees are the people who are responsible for keeping this promise. I mentioned my favorite new example of this, or current example of this morning. But if your promise is, we fly the friendly skies, you better make sure that your employees are in fact friendly and try not to beat up your customers. And again, if there's dissonance between those two things, if there is a contrast between what you're saying and what people are experiencing, you lose. And so suddenly making sure your employees understand not only what your brand promise is, but how they as employees can help you keep that brand promise and deliver on it is very important. So almost the first job of a marketer today is to communicate internally. If you're a marketer today, you better have a good understanding of crisis management. You better have a good understanding of how easy it is for a crisis to derail a marketing campaign. If you're using imagery in your marketing campaign that offends people, you are going to see an explosion of social media activity that will undo all the work that you've done. And so marketers are, I think, learning to behave like and think like and act like public relations people. And you are seeing, or we are seeing, inside companies, the two functions either coming together like this or coming together like this. And I think that this creates some really interesting opportunities for public relations people in the marketing realm. Now, I should say something before I talk a little bit more about how this is happening that is more about my personal beliefs than how the real world acts. I think if we lived in a sane and rational world, marketing would report to public relations, not the other way around. For me, public relations is about managing all of your stakeholder relations. I talked about this for 2 hours this morning. I won't go into it again. Marketing is about managing one relationship with the consumer. So if you're in charge of managing all the relationships, then marketing is just a subset of what you do. And I think that philosophically, marketing should be part of PR and PR should lead marketing. The reasons that it doesn't are the challenges that I think we face if we want to be the people inside organizations who take on this new brand reputation idea. And we talked about some of them on the first panel. Data and analytics. I believe that there is a very simple rule in marketing. There is a very linear relationship. It goes like this. The person with the best data will have the best insight. The person with the best insight will have the best strategy. The person with the best strategy will be the boss. They will get the most money and they will have the most responsibility. You can't get to great strategy without great insight. You can't get to great insight without great data. We have to be much better when it comes to gathering and processing and extracting creative ideas from data. And we're not there as an industry yet. We have to become better storytellers. We have to become... one of the things that I find fascinating about advertising is its ability to generate an emotional response. I'm sure we've all seen 30-second TV spots that have made us laugh or have brought a tear to our eye or have got us choked up with emotion about the product, even if it's a product we don't care about. Because advertising people know how to tell stories that move people. we're very good at telling factual stories, I think, but we're not, as an industry, I think, quite as good at telling emotional stories, and we need to figure that out. We also need to figure out how behavioral science and cognitive science informs our work, because what we think changes people's minds, whether it's political, social, or as consumers, is not often what really changes people's minds. And I come back to the first point. People are moved to change their behavior by stories, not by facts. Images, rather than words, are what move people. And we have always, as an industry, been better at words than we have as images. We need to get better at that. And finally, we need to get better at measuring. Not finally, because I have one more point. We need to get better at measuring. Francis, this morning, made a point about AVEs and the irrelevance of AVEs. I'm sure that the lady from the EFIs would have something to say about that as well. I'll say something that goes beyond AVE. I think we have to forget about reach. We run our own awards competition. It's not nearly as big or as sophisticated as the EFIs in terms of measurement. But we look at about 5,000 campaigns from around the global PR industry every year. And I would say that I would say that of those that are measured at all, half of them are measured by reach. And I'm tired of it, because reach doesn't matter. Reach is a lazy measurement of how loud you shouted. It is not a measurement of what impact you had. And we have to start looking at engagement. We have to start looking at behavior. We have to start looking at sales. And you can reach 10 people and change the behavior of all 10. You can reach 100 people and change none of them. We have to start focusing on what really matters in terms of measuring the impact of what we do. And the final thing that I want to say about how we need to change in order to embrace this new world is we need to start to think not like communicators, but like business people. I talk to a lot of people who do public relations, and I speak to a lot of people who employ public relations people. I've never heard anybody say, my PR people don't understand how to communicate. I've never heard anybody say, my PR people don't understand the media. I don't really hear people say, my PR people don't understand social media. What I hear them say is, my PR people don't understand the business. When I have a room with a lawyer, an accountant, a management consultant, and a PR person, 3 of them speak the language of the CEO. 3 of them understand the supply chain. 3 of them can read a balance sheet. And the 4th, all too often, just wants to talk about what the press release will look like or how we make the podium a little bit fancier so that it looks good on camera. We have to start to function as if we are the best business person in the room. And if we can do that, our natural advantage in terms of understanding all the things I was talking about earlier, purpose and CSR and employee communications, and the need to earn people's attention and earn people's trust and build relationships with them, will play to our advantage. And as brand and reputation come closer together, as I believe they will, there is an opportunity for public relations people to become the most senior leader within the organization who is responsible for both. And this panel is a wonderful panel, I think, to talk about some of those issues, because we certainly have some businesses where the threat to the brand is not product quality, it's not innovation. Look at the pharmaceutical industry, right? So I don't want to, I'm going to be quite nice, right?
Please.
I think. The problems facing the pharmaceutical industry have nothing to do with innovation. They come up with wonderful new drugs. There's a pipeline of life-saving products. It's nothing to do with quality. Most of them work. They produce great products. They save people's lives. And yet, of the two industries at the far end of the panel there, right, we have pharmaceuticals and we have guns. They're quite different.
But both can kill.
And both can save lives.
And both can save,
right?
absolutely.
But if you went to America, this company is hated more than that company. In America, we hate pharmaceutical companies more than we hate gun manufacturers, more than we hate armaments companies. The reputational threat has nothing to do with innovation, has nothing to do with product quality, it has to do with behavior. It has to do with drug pricing. It has to do with the way in which drugs are rationed. It has to do with the crippling cost of paying for your own health care in America. And all of that is being blamed on the pharmaceutical industry. This is not a marketing challenge. This is a public relations challenge. This is about convincing people that the good you do far outweighs the bad. And in that context, I believe that when it comes to brand reputation, in years gone by, brand was like this and reputation was like this. But we are moving into an era where brand is just a part of overall reputation. And in that era, we should be leading. We should be taking control of brands. We should be taking control of marketing. We should be doing paid media and owned media and earned media and shared media, and not focusing on publicity and press releases and a little bit of social. We should be taking the lead, and that's the opportunity for our profession. It's a very exciting time.
Paul, very exciting statement, and not one, a lot of, but I would propose to take one like key word of your statement today. So we cannot control reputation, we can influence, correct?
Yes, and by the way, so yeah. There's a very interesting thing that's happening in that environment. Mm-hmm. So one of the things that has been a disadvantage for public relations historically, I think, is that lack of control. So, first of all, CEOs like control. You don't get to be big and powerful and in charge of everything without feeling like you're in control. So CEOs like to feel in control. Marketers like control. They like to know, if I spend this much money, I will get this message in front of this many people. And that is not something that public relations has always been able to guarantee. So in the past, our inability to control everything, at the end of the day, the journalist is going to write what he writes. The social media is going to buzz about whatever it buzzes about. That's been a disadvantage. But here's what I believe, that there is a continuum in everything an organization does, with control at one end and credibility at the other end. And the more control you have over the message, the less credible that message is. The more you want the message to be credible, the more you focus on trust and engagement and relationship building, the more control you have to let go. Because at the end of the day, what people want is truth and authenticity and third-party endorsement and dialogue and inclusivity and transparency. And all of those things require that you lose control. All of those things mean you have to give up some control. And I think that companies are coming to realize that if you are authentic, you can give up control and get a ton of credibility. And there is no commodity in communications or management today that is more valuable than credibility. It is all about trust. relationships are built on trust, whether that's a relationship with your employee or your consumer. Relationships are built on trust. Trust is earned through credibility. Credibility is only possible if you surrender control. And that puts us in a very, very good position, I think.
You're absolutely right. I would say yes, if our guests and audience don't mind. But is it a matter of future you're talking about?
I think it's happening now, but I think it's going to continue. So I think what we're seeing right now is a handful of companies have figured this out. I was really interested by the total presentation that we experienced a few minutes ago, because I think, again, that like a lot of the companies at this table, they're in a very interesting position in that if you're a pharmaceutical company or an oil company, then the reality is, I think, that you're an oil company first, and then you're total, right? So it's the same for you, right?
It's about business.
You're a well, not just that. It's the reputation. So
yes.
Oil companies have a certain reputation. Pharmaceutical companies have a certain reputation. There is only so far that Pfizer can get away from the rest of the pharmaceutical industry. No matter how wonderful Pfizer is, no matter how much great work you do, at the end of the day, when somebody says, God, I hate pharmaceutical companies, they're not saying, I hate most pharmaceutical companies, but I really love Pfizer. Right? I mean, you can aim for that. But you also have to shift perceptions of the entire industry. So your job is even more formidable than you thought it was. But I think right now there are a handful of companies that realize that they have to be leaders, that they have to be leaders in their sectors. Unilever, I think, in the consumer products category, has been one of those companies that really understood that it had to put purpose and values right at the heart of brand reputation. There are companies in every sector, I think, that do that. There are companies in every country that do that. Because you have two problems. You're part of the financial services sector and you're Russian. And both of those things have big implications for your reputation, even though you can't control either of them.
Yeah.
But you can be a leader no matter what category you're in and what sector you're in. So you can always be the best consumer goods company, the best pharma company, the best arms manufacturer, whatever it is, right? And right now there are a handful of companies who figured that out and are trying to be the best in their categories. What we are going to see, I think, in the future is as those companies succeed, and I think they will, then everybody is going to have to do this. But it's better to be in front than, as always, it is better to be a leader than a follower. It's better to be first than last. So I should say one other thing, by the way, which is I have a flight back later, and so I'm certainly not going to make it to the end of this conversation. I'm very much looking forward to hearing what I can, but I have a pretty hard finish at 3 o'clock.
Paul,
so I'm
thank
not being
you
rude.
very much indeed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, for all the things.
I'm sure everybody is tired of hearing from me anyway. So.
Many thanks to you. And now, if you don't mind, we switch to our companies and industries. There's very special and very interesting expertise in brand and promotion. Мы с вами начнем с той самой.
Let's start with the pharmaceutical industry, and Galina will tell us how it works with the reputation of the brand and which specialties in B2B she has this special segment of the industry that exists, and in the management and building reputation. Dear colleagues, good day. I think all of my presentation, I could build on all the challenges that Paul covered, but I'd like to tell you some of the other aspects of work that I deal with. I'd like to tell you what is pharmacy. Let's say, what is pharmaceutical industry? When the customer comes to the drugstore and asking for the drug or recommendation or already buys, is it RX or OTC? But this is just the top of iceberg. The major part of purchases is done by the hospitals, for example, and the doctor prescribing these are the drugs, let's say, which is on the list of the necessary list of the products, which is viable for life and supported by the state. It is usually special committees who decides, let's say, what's the best for the patient. The doctors should know all the nuances. And, it's a matter sometimes not even of the weeks or days, but the minutes. The pharmaceutical industry is one of the most regulated. According to the advertisement law, we cannot promote RX drugs in not specialized mass media. And we are very different from the United States, where any patient can buy RX. Just knowing the advertisement. 20 seconds is the advertisement of the RX drug, and 40 seconds some warnings and side effects. And in the United States, the attitude to this industry is a little bit different. My colleagues had the statistics. Got the statistics. Pfizer became a Russian one from the point of view of the reputation of the brand, and I'm very proud. And this could be, let's say, my answer. Well, getting prepared to this discussion, Pfizer is in Russia, let's say, number one in Russia. In the sales, yes, there is a retail and hospital segments. Depending on the segments, it all depends on these. We work with a specialized mass media covering the drugs, but we understand that all people is reading any kind of sources. We need wider and broader auditoriums and audiences. We speak differently. If, for example, we speak to the targeted audience, who of you buy antibiotics without recipes? This is RX that should be prescribed by the doctor, but we do not do it. And it should be very individual to the patient. But if we do it, let's say, ourselves, we really risk that our body becomes resistant to these drugs. And once we really need a therapy, when we speak about life and death, these drugs cannot work, let's say, out. And the resistance to these drugs is one of the problems of our time, and all the other directions that we really cover and speak about. And separately, Paul also highlighted it. Our inside, our colleagues. This is our brand ambassadors. First of all, my name is myself. I'm the PR manager. Once I entered Pfizer's, I started to deal with the inside communicators. Let's say we have 1,000 people in the company. You need to work about this because the colleagues work all around Russia. They promote the brands in their daily work life. I can agree fully with Paul that internal branding and HR branding is very, very important. Another point, promoting brands. We cannot not touch upon the company. This is the united, let's say, not tie. We speak a lot about the activity of the company. There are a lot of tools. This is a special program where we speak about the importance of the access to the patient to some therapy. These events devoted to some social activities. One of the blogs that I should touch upon, social colleagues, who of you do not have any web pages in one of the internet? Okay, we have only one representative here, right? We understand. I'd like to add to Paul's point that everyone can feel themselves the journalist. You can publish any kind of information, and it's logical that pharmaceutical companies should have their pages in the social mass media. Speaking about advertisements, we cannot promote our drugs, RX, in the social networks. Even if we do this kind of comments, for example, I took this kind of drugs, I had, let's say, a nice feeling. We need to, let's say, speak and report about these special feelings to this special agency. I know that not all the pharmaceutical companies have this kind of web pages. There is some complexities, some risk. We know that practically everyone, every company, this industry has these web pages. The work in the pharmaceutical industry is wonderful, even because even there are some limits. Of course, we promote our products. Here we speak about social activity. We can choose different products. We can speak here about the ways how patients can just live, knowing and informing them about the opportunities of the treatments and or the problems we really help. Galina, PR is not a nice word for pharmacy. Is it, let's say, very close to HR? Very close, really, with then in other industries. Adding the words to Paul's words, I want to build my let's say, let's do not do PR for PR if there is the opportunity. Sorry, okay, thank you very much. If there is the possibility to have the opportunity not to do PR for the sake of PR, but with the connection with the business opportunities and tasks, this is optimal, of course, a way. If you promote the product, but if you understand what are the tasks you are resolving, on which tasks you resolve, it's the nicest stuff we can do. The more interesting business, we are moving forward. So let's listen to Sophie Ivanova from the arms industry. Let's speak about reputation of the made brands. Thank you very much for the invitation of this company like mine, and I have this opportunity to speak about this reputation, this industry. We've heard a lot about reputation today, but I'd like to start my story. Once I met with the top management of Kalashnikov, I asked them, why do you need PR to this group of companies, Kalashnikov? It has the strongest reputation. The reputation of Kalashnikov is huge. This is the only Russian iPhone. The technology for the last 70 years has not been beaten, let's say. The first question, why Kalashnikov needs PR? What about the arms in the Star Wars? I got the answer that for today, and it's very important that Kalashnikov, this is B2B story, first of all. This is the DNA of the brand. This is sale of the guns and other armaments to different countries. This is one segment. I'd like to speak about a big B2C segment. This is civil products that Kalashnikov is dealing with very actively right now. For today, a group of companies, Kalashnikov, is more than AK, let's say. These are drones, this is power-free apparatus, this is these are boats, for example, boats that transport people from Sevastopol to Yalta. These are even clothes. electronics, electric motorbikes. We have pool of products that we need and want to promote for a big audience that is not connected maybe with a military segment as well. Here I'd like to support Galina, and we are in quite hard legal position, and according to the law in advertisement we cannot promote our products anywhere except for the special mass media. This is special magazines with a very small circulation, doesn't cover my requirements being the brand. First of all, we have regulatory, strict regulations. Another thing, this is these are sanctions. I can't, let's say, buy the promotion in Facebook. Just for you to understand, and YouTube, of course, yes, and so on. Only in foreign agencies or in contact, for example. This is because of the brand itself. This is our brand. I can't buy any kind of promotion there as well. So this is brand number 1. Kalashnikov is the brand that is correlated with even vodka or Putin. These nice stories that all the world knows. And having this brand in my hands, we haven't thought over the best point, but to create our own mass media. We got the license being mass media 2 years ago. We want to speak about, and we do this there. That's the point of interest, that the point of sport, that's cyber sport. Any stories that are connected with the electro motorbikes and nets and so on. We have our own mass media platform. We can speak what we can do, how we do, speak about it, promote this content, speak about technologies. We can do this in the social media. Even it's not that toxic anymore. Let's say after this kind of refinery, journalists get our news and our, let's say, means of transportation that carries our carriers, that carry our spirit, let's say, spirits. This was our trick. We couldn't do it ourselves. Let's say we tried to approach it from the different angle, and we became our own mass media. I'd like to speak about this challenge now. If we speak about special brands, we've spoken a lot about new audiences. I'm sure that my kids, our kids, they will not be that strong in their love to military stories or stories connected with the AK-47. What about gamers? What do you think? Right now, we became the part of cyber sport. We understood that we want to speak with these guys in their language, in their platforms. We identified for ourselves which platform. All the cyber, let's say, sport people made. We have our own contest. We devote a lot of time to special contact. We buy rights for the highlights of the games in cyber sport. We spend a lot of time to grow our audience, and we'll buy what we produce under our brand. That's what we think. You can't buy a Kalashnikov in Russia. You can buy any kind of sport arms, but the hunter's one. But we produce our brand, a lot of products. I think that, and I hope that these kids that will grow up soon will not be afraid of me, but perceive me as any other brand, as Coca-Cola, let's say. That's about our stories in cybersport. A couple of words, let me tell you about the such teams like Lisa Alert. These are special teams that look for the missing people, for the lost people. We are going to sign the agreement. We have 50 pilot teams that would be and can be used in this search. I think Kalashnikov will have this good, nice image participating in this project. This is a social responsibility that we have been discussing today. On the 19th of September, we are opening the Academy of Kalashnikov. This is an educational organization. I hope that President will open in Izhevsk. 1,000 kids that we would teach every year with the neural nets, production, design, IT, and all the other professions that are connected with the technologies, new technologies in the industry. We want to grow our personnel so that they would work only in our company, but in other companies. Thank you very much. We all know that this brand Kalashnikov is the brand of our country, one of the three that still today, let's say, world is changing, but now we are, let's say, connected with you and associated with. We know that this brand with the human face, it's very important, very interesting. I would know more and will check the web pages that you mentioned and the products that I have not known. Right now we have two more presentations, very interesting one. Yulia Kryukova from Moscow State University will tell us about evaluation of the reputation of the brands. This is modern criteria and obvious factors, not obvious factors of the effect. So it's hard to make any kind of evaluation, especially in the framework of those issues that Paul already mentioned today. So, some companies are the brands that give us emotions on an everyday basis. Thank you very much.
I'm grateful for this opportunity to talk here. I'm Yulia Kryukova. I'm a senior teacher at the Department of Philosophy, and I actually teach PR theory and practice. It's been 6 years that I'm writing my thesis about the problems related to reputation. It's about socio-philosophical analysis. So I would like to systemize all those criteria that have been mentioned and to sum it up somehow. So I have systemized this and I break it down into inner and outer criteria. Or actually, it would be better to say I split it into internal and external factors and qualitative and quantitative factors. So I would be happy if you make some contribution into my list, because it's not exhaustive. So before I give you all the things that I have included in the list, all of us have used the concept of reputation as an obvious thing. However, reputation has been studied by specialists from 14 different subject areas and disciplines: marketologists, psychologists, lawyers. All of them describe this concept. It's not the property, it's not some assets, and I actually studied the etymology of this word and many different characteristics. I have come to a conclusion that reputation is both the result and the process of decision making based on activity implemented either by a person or company. And Paul Holmes mentioned about this, because we judge not only according to the words, but to the real actions that the company takes. That was one thing. Another thing that has been mentioned by Paul is what he said about brand. In the past, brand and reputation existed separately from each other, whereas now it's different. So today the brand is not only represented as a visualization of the company, but also it could be, a personal brand, because this is very relevant today when you develop your own personal brand, and then there might be different companies under this brand. Then there is the geo brand, or the branding of territory or area where you are located. So even though there are different brands of the company or area or personal brand, still there are certain general criteria, despite that each of these subject has its own specificity. So let's get down to the quantitative and qualitative criteria that I mentioned earlier. As to qualitative criteria, they include the indicators from different reports, the number of awards, positive and negative feedback, the percentage of involvement, the number of subscriptions and followers that you have in social media, the number of patents, courses, articles, books, the number of events that you take part, the degree of recognizability. Now, as to quality, quality reflects quantitative indicators, but they, for example, they depend on market specificity. Startups are very popular nowadays when the companies can achieve very good results over a short period of time. What kind of ratings are popular? Some lose their popularity due to different reasons. Some can become corrupted, some ratings can have sectoral character or international or local character. The same is true about awards. What kind of awards? The quality of feedback, image has been mentioned, and visualization and corporate image that has been mentioned by Total Company. Another quality criteria is transparency of the company and the truth, or the whether it's trustworthy. But is there truth in the time of post-truth? We'll discuss it later. Then the tone of publications, which are quality. And then the participation in prestigious international events and the status of participation, whether you are just a listener or an expert and the speaker or a member of the jury. Many people mentioned quality and meeting different requirements, standards, the index of trust, using modern technologies, high level of qualification. Many companies try to improve the level of education of their staff and improve their soft skills. Social responsibility is another criterion that has been mentioned today. whether it is addressed to the target audience or society at large, then the mission, the vision, and the values of the company declared by the company, and how well it complies with those. Now, I'd love to mention external factors. Who is evaluating whether the social problems affect? And then as to internal factors, this is related to the level of expertise, whether the person is aware of the many aspects related to the company. Then some psychological characteristics, whether the hierarchy of values correspond with expectations, and finally the results of my research. As to internal factors, I can say that the interaction with the subject is critical here. So I identify 3 stages of interaction: pre-reputation, subjective reputation, and post-reputation. And you can probably guess what it means. So pre-reputation is some primary information that you collect about the subject. What information we can get from mass media or social media, or what other people tell me about it. So it could be very subjective. But when we move to the next stage, which is about personal context, we create our own subjective opinion about the subject. And finally, we either stop interacting because we might be not satisfied with our context, or maybe the company went bankrupt, or the person might die if we speak about personal brand. We move to the next stage, post-reputation, when there's no other chance to communicate personally. So that's why it's important to take into account not just qualitative and quantitative criteria, but also the interaction with the subject. It could be some literature that we read, but anyway, we have no contact with the subject anymore because the company doesn't exist. Actually, I think it's very useful to listen to some structured theory. You know, we can work for years, but it's always nice to refresh this and to take a look from a different perspective. You mentioned this matrix, and this includes all sorts of stakeholders. And Igor, you know, I was waiting for this moment when you join us, and I hope that you will agree that we all speak about emotions, no matter what industry we touched upon or experience we shared, because I think it's impossible to develop reputation or brand if we don't invest in the message, in the content that is part of the brand. And it's true, being practitioners, we don't sometimes mention certain things that seem obvious. It doesn't make much sense to create a brand of your company if there's a certain attitude to the sector as a whole. Or, for example, speaking about pharmaceutical industry or arms industry, I remember that 15 years ago I used to work in the pharmaceutical industry, and CEO Alex Rodzianko, an American person, said, you know, it's like weapons, drugs, and prostitution, and left. But of course, it's a very tough position. So now, without jokes. I just want to say that if we create a brand, we have to work with the industry brand, and communication is part of it. And so I would like now to give the floor to Igor Makarov. We met when we had to ask for a top official or some consultant. I was about light swords and some different accessories that we had to buy. I know that it's a very serious business. It's very complicated. You have a new head of the company. And of course, it probably implies some restructuring. So that's the industry that helps us. That helps us to develop, to get some emotions, and gives us some good things. You know, without creative approaches, we are nothing. So we can never deal with our business if we don't use creative approaches. Hello, dear colleagues. I'm very sorry that Paul left. I actually thought that all the problems he mentioned have been resolved, so it's clear where to go. So I wanted to share my story with you. I'm working in the industry which is loved by many. That's why we don't have any problems that other industries might have. And I can actually say that if the industry has some negative association, maybe you should change this. Don't stay in the apartment that is being flooded. Just step outside and do something. We are working at a Disney company, and you know that we have been working on the Russian market for 13 years, and I started working from the very start. So it's been always important for us to be perceived positively in our professional community. That's why we developed certain things that we started to communicate to our partners. We are reliable, we are transparent, it's fun to work with us, it's profitable and beneficial to work with us. So we wanted this idea to stay in our partner's mind, and this is what we began to communicate. So throughout this period of 10 years, we achieved what we wanted. We achieved our vision. And like Paul said, whatever we say has to be supported by the actions. And we have to remember about it every day. If you are a happy and joyful company, you have to be open and joyful company every day. No matter how difficult the situation is, whether you hire people or fire people, you have to remain what you declare. But sometimes the company reputation is not translated into the industry reputation. For example, we have 3 brands that are quite well known, and Marvel, Star Wars, and Disney are the 3 main brands. They joined our company only in the last 3 years, and this involves the association between the Marvel company, Disney company, and Star Wars. they were different projects created by different people. So the reputation of this brand is based on its own foundation. For example, if the company reputation of Walt Disney is one thing, and as to Star Wars, it's an epic saga far away from the earth, and Marvel is about superheroes that have some human-like problems. So there are different teams that work with in different areas, and since they generate different kind of content. I think that what I'm saying is very simple. You don't have to study it for 14 years, or you mentioned post-reputation. So it's all easy because it all depends on what we want to consume. So Star Wars is a special project for us because we are the only country that has Star Wars in our native language. For example, Disney is very broad, so we can fill it in with any content we want. We know what Star Wars like. So if we decided to keep the English title, it would feel alien, it would feel American, not ours. So we wouldn't probably be willing to go and watch another film. So we have our own title, Звездные войны. And it's very special for us. Like, for example, in the Middle East, has a different situation because people don't go and watch the film. And for example, The Mermaid and other companies get bigger box office as compared to Star Wars. Then Marvel isn't used. And so Sony has, Fox company has Marvel, we have Marvel, and we wanted to make a difference between our films and Marvel studio films. We know that Spider-Man is working together with Avengers, so many different studios tell us the stories about the same characters. Another thing is that studio is not quite clear as a word to Russian people. Not everybody speaks English, and that's why it washes out the meaning.
When we've seen Disney Studios, you have a picture of the Hollywood producer and gathers money in different areas, facilities there, and we were allowed not to use studios, and all the communicative materials and mass media resources we use Marvel. If we go deeper into some brand on the top level, we can do and apply it to any brands, how we want to be perceived. We want every product of Disney would be perceived very qualitative, honest, nice, wonderful, that the story would be very optimistic and joy. This is joy in, what is it about? It is joy in the present that I use, but and optimism in the future. This is the notion that we are going to and where we are moving to. And we want from this point of view to be all values to be valued. I have the inner filter, let's say, all the time once deciding if I want this or that product to be seen by my kids. I have several of them, and there could be some awkward situations that can appear. We can not, for example, we cannot show this contact or change it. All the producers, let's say, they have their own visions and understanding what can be set into the brand. And speaking about these values, 13 years ago they haven't been described that time, and we've done it ourselves. And speaking about Russia, optimism, for example, in the content is the most important one. Everything else, magic, is seen in Disney. This is not only a miracle for us, but some miracle and miracle moments. Let's say we don't know how we can earn money, but being Russian and Russian citizen. From our reality, we need to understand if we can move from one point to another one. It helps us to be positive and optimistic. So reputation and brands are important. Communication and marketing is one thing. PR marketing and directors, let's say, there were two vacancies, let's say, two different jobs. PR and marketing, let's say, should go together. This body will not work if it doesn't coincide. We have inner research in the office and all the offices of Disney. Reputation, for example, in business, reputation in Russia is higher than in everywhere else. Brand Disney, as we approach to it, not like a setting at localizing this in Russia and just to buy something that is Disney. We speak about special programs. So we do produce products, and the brand is being loved and perceived very positively. It has top 1, top 2 position in Russia than in any other country. We've taken and we've got what we have been striving for. We should always remember every day that we should be like this. All this upon the whole. Why do we need it? Finally, we all need it. At the very end, for money, of course. If you speak today some stuff, and tomorrow you do something different, and then in a day you do something else or communicate something else, they have somehow be confused. They will be confused. Right now, people know if you go to the cinema that the movie will be interesting, it will be very human, added with some special situations. Right now, we do special projects, events. The Sleeping Beauty has been offended by some men, okay, and some other examples. The last hero, let's say, the last hero that we are right now recording, it has been very successful. 70% of people became interested in this movie. They consider that they became interested. Why? Because they see that Disney is doing something in Russia. So brand, this is the first step. If people know what it is, why it is interesting, come and see what we are ready to share with you. This is very simple. The most complicated one to stick to your way and check if you are going the right direction. To build the reputation and build the brand, it's very complicated, but to destroy it is very simple and very fast. Igor, thank you very much. Dear colleagues, I think that today we got enough insight. But once again, we fix the most important points. Speaking about reputation, about the brand, we speak about business, we speak about the industries, where all of them has their own specific things. But we have consensus that we live today, we see future today. We need to think over new tools in order to get the new target audience and lead it to the aim that we need, your business needs. You need to grant this emotion. and it should be formed in this audience. And you need to form this reputation and keep it, maintain it with the tools that market requires from us. And this post-truth, let's say, that has been mentioned already. Thank you very much, dear colleagues. Thank you. I want to offer you to ask your questions in the hall if you have these questions to our speakers. Thank you very much.